The shadows of development. Boy, look at the green. Look at the rivers as they flow to the sea. A place so lush, full of beauty. My years are few, but enough to see how special my country can be. They try to make it right, but blinded by the dollar sign, the green they see is not like mine. So they destroy all that is divine. The environment walks the green mile. The squinted eyes of the developer looks lustfully at our gift from above. They break, they dig, they dump, all to build a world-class hub. Is it worth the risk, this irreversible task, that the land will wear as a lamenting mask, which may only benefit the rich and upper class? Wait, don't break nature's concentration with tractors, trailers, and bulldozers. The little creatures run, the plants, they are stuck. The only home they knew, now crumbling rock. The squinted eyes of the developer looks lustfully at our gift from above. They break, they dig, they dump, all to build a world-class hub. But them not gonna help me, the residents cry. We need them job here. Our only way for survive is cow chat bad why? Them come for take our livelihood, the little fishing income we keep, to offer us those jobs to clean. The squinted eyes of the developer looks lustfully at our gift from above. They break, they dig, they dump, all to build a world-class hub. We shake in fear as we await the effects to these changes to what is dear. No petitions, no protests. They all wait on jets. There is time before it happens, but they prefer to fret, cry instead of sweat. My home, my island, the place I have slept, torn down with no regret. The squinted eyes of the developer looks lustfully at our gift from above. They break, they dig, they dump, all to build a world-class hub. No patience, no concern. The only question asked is, how else can we earn? Although they don't deserve. With clouded judgments, the plans go forth. Money, the main driving force. The beginning of Jamaica's curse. Oh me, oh my, the end draws nigh. The sky is grey, the land has died, and the squinted eyes of the developer looks lustfully at our precious gift from above. They break, they dig, they dump, all to build a world-class hub.
Hello and a warm welcome to this video interview from the Young Anglican Theology Project. My name is the Reverend Dr. Arabella Milbank Robinson, and I'm the Dean of Chapel and Chaplain of Selwyn College in Cambridge, and it's also a pleasure to be one of the commissioning editors for this project. The Young Anglican Theology Project gathers young people from between 18 and 40 across the Anglican Communion, and it seeks to connect, to encourage, and to empower young Anglicans with a passion for theology and a sense perhaps of what might be distinctive about Anglican theology. So it's such a joy to be here today with Bethany Johnson, who has submitted for our latest series of topic posts a wonderful submission of a poem and an essay on the theme of ecology and climate. So, Bethany, first of all, I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself to viewers and to say something about where you are at the moment in your life as a young Anglican, and perhaps too as a theologian.
Thank you, Arabella. And yes, as you had mentioned, my name is Bethany Johnson, and I am a proud member of the church in the province of the West Indies through the Diocese of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. I have never really considered myself a theologian before. However, I guess through this submission and throughout various works that I have conducted in my home church and initiatives that I have attempted to take on within my own diocese, probably it's just a path that I had not realized before that I just naturally have been on. Currently, I am in Liverpool as a member of the Bishop's missional community called Sadaka. And Sadaka means to do justice. It's a year-long program where I am paired with a charity here in Liverpool. My placement is with Together Liverpool. And they work alongside different churches and organizations to assist with their social action projects.
That sounds absolutely wonderful and very exciting work, Bethany. Um, I want to take us back to your two pieces and to ask you, they're very powerful pieces on the church and faith response to the climate crisis. I'd like to know the story behind them. How did you first become sensitized to ecological issues? Where does that come from in your own story?
Well, to be honest, it has just always been a part of me. I've always been a very outdoorsy young lady, and I've just always enjoyed nature. And so the poem itself is actually 10 years old. It was written as a part of a school-based internal assessment that I had to do for what would be the equivalent of the A levels in the UK, I believe. And we were told to pick a topic, sorry, and that topic would inform that entire assessment. And there was a reflective piece that was needed as part of the assessment. And so I picked the topic development versus devastation. And the poem was born from that. Biology has always been my favorite subject. And so I saw it as an opportunity to mix a passion of mine with, well, something that was necessary for my grade. And it helped in being able to develop something I found to be very meaningful. And when I saw the post for the publication, I realized that it was an opportunity to breathe new life into this poem that I had never really known where it would have gone, but something that I knew was meaningful because it was something that I found important. And as the years progressed, even 10 years later, it's so relevant. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost wonderful to see that, even then, I did what is now becoming more popular. And before all of the hype and all of the audiences that ecology was receiving and advocacy on sustainability was receiving, that inside I knew that it was something that was important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it has that passion and that power and that strength of your, I'd almost like to say, your protest, heartfelt protest against the ugliness you were seeing. And yeah, that was definitely what we valued in it when we accepted it for the series. I wondered whether you could tell us a bit and feel free to repeat something of what you've already written about how you think theology and faith help us to think about and maybe also to react strongly and meaningfully to issues that relate to our crisis of climate. Yeah.
Well, as I would have stated in my article, we are stewards, and the church itself, I believe, doesn't have the same or shouldn't have the same motivations as many big corporations. It should be seeing God's creation as just that and the responsibility that we have been given to care for and manage that. Unfortunately, I see where, we have lost touch just through the everyday wanting to build economies, build grand structures, and I guess for the sake of our own egos and legacies is where we have really deviated from that role of stewardship. And honestly, the relationship with our environment should also mirror how Jesus taught us to live with each other. He used many parables about sowing of seeds, the harvest, to demonstrate this. And that should speak a lot as to how we should value creation if our own Jesus Christ can use that as a means of example and teaching to us.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful thought that we need to learn to look with Christ's eyes and how we can see him in all those amazing parables and observations. One thinks of the lilies of the field and the birds of the air in particular,
Exactly.
just observing, reacting, and experiencing um, that unstoppable beauty and freedom of creation. Um, that's wonderful, Bethany. I'm now going to ask a slightly more painful question, which is, what are you most anxious about when it comes to climate issues and how we see them playing out in our world today? And happy side of this, what gives you hope?
I must be honest, I think the thing that I am most anxious about is actually just the inability to satisfy human greed.
Mm,
We are living in such a time now with political and economic instability, and scarcity is just rampant because of that. And there are so many people who profit from it. And because they profit from that, there is no push towards actually resolving it and resolving it in a way that is overly sustainable and will actually prevent it from happening again. And because of that, I think all the work and all of the advocacy that has gone into, ecology and sustainability, that is at risk of just no longer becoming important because people are, in fact, just trying to survive, just trying to care for the people they love and to maintain just some form of stability within themselves and within their homes. And it's kind of very difficult to think about, oh, well, I really need to separate my rubbish when you have no idea if you're going to be able to put food on the table or if there is some random act of violence that's going to happen right outside of your front door. And I think that's the thing that makes me most anxious is that we will lose sight of the whole idea of climate change simply because of our need for self-preservation.
mm, mm,
And but what does give me hope is I do believe that things are cyclical. I serve a living God, and his son taught us that, struggles and strife are a part of life. That's why he came down to us to be an example to us of that and to also show us that all of this can be overcome at the end of it all. So I hold out hope in that. I would never claim to be psychic. I'll never claim to know how the events that persons and man have, put forward will play out. But no matter what, I do know that it's something that can be and will be overcome.
So I want to take a slightly new tack with our conversation and our exploration of theology. Your first submission to us was, as you have said, in the form of this wonderful poem that you wrote as a much younger person, but which still has great power and impact now. What do you think that poetry might be able to do, both in terms of theology, but also we might think in terms of the impact on hearts and minds? That seems such an important part of responding to our environmental plight. That other forms of writing, like prose or essays, might not. What can poetry do?
I would say that for me, poetry is just, it's very lyrical and it can be catchy. So if you know there is a repeating chorus, a repeating verse in my poem because it's to repeat and just solidify um, the point that's trying to be brought forward. However, just like prose and other forms of writing, I think they're all just forms of expression, and it's it's whomever is using the form and whomever is receiving the form who are want to know how they want to convey the meaning and how best it is for them to receive a meaning. Because just as how I wrote the poem, there is an accompanying essay that helps to solidify and explain. Poems have, analogies and euphemisms and things that may not be direct in, you know, someone's understanding of the topic, but then whereas prose is more direct and it's not as lyrical. So one is more catchy, one is more direct. So it's really for the audience and how best they are able to receive it. And I even, because in my preparation, I was looking at it and I said, if we look at the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
the Psalms are more lyrical, more songs and poems, but then you have the narrative descriptive writing of Revelation. It's all still to execute the same function at the end of the day, to relay the message and to have that message received by various audiences.
Use every weapon in our arsenal. Brilliant. So,
Yes.
Bethany, I want to ask you something about a sort of Anglican communion question, really. Your
Mhm.
background, you're in the UK now, but your background is obviously in the Caribbean and Jamaica. And I wondered, what do you think that the wider Anglican communion needs to hear from your part of the body? What kinds of things come to mind?
Boy, I think the first thing I can say is that Caribbean people are a people of celebration and joy. It has been tools that we have utilized throughout our history for our resilience, for our self expression, for gratitude. We have been able to accomplish and overcome so many things that have been difficult, that have been to many persons, they wonder how is it that these people are able to stay so resilient and how are they able to laugh in times of such hardship and grief. And it's because of that. And our music, our creativity, our poetry, that those have been our mouthpieces to really show, our culture and to document our histories. And I believe that in understanding that, it would be very useful for other cultures to, be able to overcome a lot of difficulties and to really be united with one another a bit better. I think that's something that they definitely can learn from the Caribbean.
That is just beautiful and a wonderful way to bring our interview to a conclusion, really. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice.
Rejoice.
And I
Amen.
think that's not incidental to this whole issue we've been talking about how do we respond to climate crisis, that we are called to take joy, to see the world through joyful and rejoicing eyes, grateful eyes, and in that way to see more of what it is, what it can continue to be, despite all the fears we may have. So that's just brilliant. I did have one final question, which is, it's quite a big one, but it's a nice way to sign off because it passes the baton on to anyone who might be viewing this video, thinking about submitting to the project, thinking about what it means to be Anglican in the contemporary world. And that is, what's your hope for the next generation of young Anglican theologians?
Well, I can start with why I love being Anglican. I have said it so many times. It's the sense of communion and familiarity that I gain from knowing the origin, the backstories, and understanding that no matter where I go, and even with cultural differences, even with, worship changes and, you know, amendments, I still know that I am a part of a communion and that we are in communion together. And I think my hope for the next generation is that they learn and appreciate our doctrine and the soundness of it, and that we take time to truly understand our liturgies and our origins. Our liturgies have space for everything under the sun, and there are prayers that give God thanks for our creation. It gives God thanks for us, life. There is nothing that isn't touched through our liturgy and through the prayers that we utilize on a daily basis. And I think learning the meaning behind that is important. I know that there are some aspects of our histories that are darker, some that are hard to grapple with, but if we're able to own and reclaim that and do that intentionally, then I see nothing wrong with how our our communion is and what it can be for the world at this time in celebrating that unity amongst all of us. And in reclaiming and restructuring, we understand that even these dark parts that need to be addressed, that it's not a sense where it invalidates everything else that is there. And we don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater in trying to, you know, rectify errors of our pasts. And that's really my hope, that the newer generation can understand that the traditions that have long been upheld for so many years, even with the errors that have helped to propagate that, the core and the meaning behind it all is still sound and still very meaningful and useful, even in a time like this.
That's beautiful, Bethany. And I think of the words of Nicholas Ferrer of the Little Gidding community, which is not far from us here in Cambridge. This is the good old way you are in, keep in it. And it's amazing to have your communion and your wisdom and your joy. So thank you very much, sister in Christ. And goodbye for now to those who are watching this interview. I hope you'll tune in again and look around the website for more videos with more young Anglican theologians, and come and be one of us. Goodbye for now.